Okay, so here we are on the AppAssure main core console dashboard. Now, this is a web page that you can access from any device. As long as you have access to your network where your core is located, you can access this. What I'm seeing here on the screen is on the left-hand side, I've got my core listed with the protected machines under it that I have felt were necessary to back up and protect. And then below that, I have the recovery points only, which is an additional machine that's no longer in my environment. However, I have chosen to keep the recovery points because the data is something that I need to retain according to my policies that I've put in place. And then if we go to the center of the screen here on the Home tab, we'll notice again it lists the protected machines, shows our recovery points, says the repository where all my data is attached. Now, my repository happens to be a logical disk, which is on this machine, but your repository could consist of a combination of, or one in particular, a logical disk, a SAN, or a NAS. And then if we scroll down a little bit here, I see alerts. I don't have any at this time, which is a really good thing, but if there were any, they would be displayed there. So going on, I can look across here, and I have a few tabs across the top. Going into the machines, I can actually see a more in-depth view of the various protected machines. I can see when the latest snapshot was taken. I could actually see if a snapshot was currently be taken. I'd see a progress bar coming across here, which would show me the status of it as it's running. At the bottom, I have again the recovery points for the protected machine that's been retained, although it's been removed from the environment. I could from here select certain machines and perform actions to protect the machine, to deploy more agents. On this one that I have selected, I could force it to create a snapshot. I could do some replication. I can remove the machine. So I have full control right from the main console. Moving over to the Replication tab, this is where if you had multiple sites, if you wanted to set up a secondary core, either at another building location, or if you wanted to use one of our services where we offer cloud services and you could replicate your local core up to a core here that would be off-site for you to protect for a true disaster, where if a storm came through and ruined your core center, you would still have your critical data and we'd be able to get you up and running very quickly. Moving over, we have our virtual standby where I can see the various machines that I'm protecting, and I have the option to select them and to set them as a virtual standby, which means that if the live machine were to go down, I could have a standby up and running with just a few clicks of a button. I could boot up the virtual machine, and I have my virtual as a live standby, if you will. Just with the click of a button, we can switch right over to it. On the Events tab, we've got all the events happening across all of the various machines. If they're active events happening, if they're completed events, if they're failed, I can see here my most recent events. I have a transfer of volume D from my SA1 AD host. It succeeded. If I want to see more details, I could simply click into the details and I can see how much data was transferred, how fast it was transferred, the progress. Now, closing off of that window, I can go back over to the Tools tab. I can look into a little bit more of the settings of my actual core machine. I can see what what's being used on it, the protected volumes, where things are sitting. I could set up boot CDs to where if I have a whole machine that goes down, it crashes, and I need to set it up from scratch, I could just pop in a CD that will already have software on it that knows how to communicate with my core, copy over the original files, and put it right back on that machine and have it up and running in 15 minutes. It's really quite amazing how quickly you're able to restore. There's no longer any of those issues where you're worried if your tape drive is going to be accessible or if you're going to have the right media or if it's corrupt. It doesn't matter because at this point, everything is digital. I can see anything that's mounted. Now, I'll get a little bit more into that here in a second, but what it is I can take one of my backups and I can mount it and look at all the files real time, and it takes a matter of seconds. It's really awesome. Looking here, I have a protect agents and a deploy agents. Right here from the console, I can push out the agents and add them right into the core with a whole list of machines. So if I have 5, 10, 15, 20 machines I want to add at the same time, I simply add them here. I put in a username and password to connect to the machine with right access. I add my repository and encryption key, and off it goes. No worries. I click down onto my downloads. From here, it's just a quick, easy way to download the agent if I need to have the manual installer to do it on my own, as well as a local mount utility, which is the same functionality as doing a mount. However, it's just a local utility I can have on my workstation. So I don't have to load this core web console. I can just use the local utility, which has advantage in some situations. I then have archives, I have diagnostics, I have reports. I have a lot of various information at my fingertips here. Moving over to our configuration, this is where we'll see what repositories are set up. Now, in this environment, I only happen to have one repository, but I can see at a quick glance that that repository is 1.86 terabytes and has 75% free space. So I really don't need another repository right now, but if I did, it would let me know very quickly right off with what I see here. And I can even see some of the block dedupe hits, the record IOs, the storage engine, the various information about it, and I can see how it's performing. So it's really, really a beneficial system here. I look down into security, and I can see here where I have my encryption key set up, which allows me to encrypt my backups. If I look here on events, it's a view where I can notify myself of things that are happening. So let's say one of my backups fails, or if I'm running a SQL on one of my servers and I have a nightly check to verify the stability of that backup, I can actually have it alert me if it fails. And I can set up those alerts either system-wide across all protected machines, or I could even do it individually on one machine. So it's a pretty powerful setup. I can come down here to my retention policy, and again, this is something where it's global or individual by the protected machine, and I can tell it exactly how long I want to keep my data for. So no longer am I wasting those tape drives, having to throw them away, worrying if they're working. I can just set right here exactly how long I want to keep. I want to keep all recovery points right now for 3 days. And once that 3 days happens, I can set up exactly what I want to happen. Right now, as I have it set, I can tell it to keep one recovery point per hour for 2 days, and then roll that into one recovery point for 4 days, and then to one for per week for 3 weeks, and then one per month for 2 months. And so you can see it's very flexible on exactly how you're wanting to do it. You can even do it up to several years. It just really depends on what your policy is and following what it is. We can move on into attachability, and this is where, in order to perform an attachability check or to verify the integrity of one of my SQL databases, I need to have a SQL server that I can test against. And so simply, this is me adding a SQL server here that allows me to test all my databases against it to ensure that it's able to mount, to attach, and it can run some verification checks against it. Many of those which are things that Microsoft recommends to be run on a nightly basis, but I myself as an administrator have to admit I rarely do them. You don't have to worry, it'll do it here for you. It'll alert you if there's problems. Very handy to have. We move on into settings. And here on the settings tab, it allows us to control a number of the things around the core about just kind of how the machine's displayed, its nightly jobs, which is how we're doing our checks on our SQL databases, when those things happen, because every environment's a little bit different. Every server, every network is a little bit different, and if you have something that coincides with it, that conflicts, you can change it, customize it. It's a great thing about the product here with AppAssure is we're very highly customizable in all the various things that we can do. Moving on to licensing, it's as simple as it's the license of when it expires, when how long I have, how many machines I'm able to protect. And here you can update your license, you can change it as need be. Really easy. Now I'm going to click off of this main configuration of, I'm not going to configure the core anymore. I want to look at one machine in particular. So I'm going to look over here at BNS03. On BNS03, I can now, if you notice my print up here changed where I'm at, and I'm looking at just this machine, and so my tabs changed across the top. And instead of looking at overall for every machine, I'm looking at just this one. So I can see when the latest snapshot was done. I can even see when the next one's going to be done, deduplication, compression, encryption, all of that right quickly at your fingertips. I could even do an action where I tell it that I want to force a snapshot. I want to pause the snapshots on this machine. I can control really exactly what's going on. I can even see the SQL database at the bottom of exactly what databases that are there. I can see the version numbers, if it's online, if there's any issues. I can simply pop over into the recovery points of this machine, and it gives me a quick glance at exactly what's happening. I can see the repository status, that there's available space. I can see if the checks were passed. In this instance, the checks haven't been run because all of these incremental updates have been done just this morning, and my checks only happen at 12 o'clock at midnight because I don't want it to happen in the middle of the day. I don't want to create a conflict and have the machine not have available resources to perform the critical backups as most changes are done during the day. I can see the size of my backups on the side. And let's say that I needed to get a file that somebody changed, somebody screwed something up. It happens all the time. And I wanted to get it back, and I knew that, at 12:20 today, that was the correct file that I needed. I could simply expand this down, and it gives me a view of that the C drive at that time. I could tell it that I want to mount that. I want to take a look at it, and I want to see the actual files. And so it gives me a little path here where I can actually mount it. I'm going to copy out that path, tell it I want it read only. I really don't want to share it right now, but I could share it if somebody else was wanting to look at it. So I'm going to hit mount, and I'll open the monitor window. It shows succeeded. We're just going to open it up where we're at, and I can see here that I have another mount point that I had mounted before. I've yet to unmount it, but I'm going to go to the one that we just did. And I can see here that I've got my C drive, as that's the only actual logical drive on this machine. And I can actually click through here and see all of the files that are on that machine. And what's really amazing is I can just click right into it, and it's really quick, extremely right when I did it. Right when I click it, it's right there. No problem, it immediately comes up. If I want to take and I want to copy out a specific file, I can just do a copy. I can drag it out to where I want it, put it back on the server. I can find that Word document. I can find whatever file it was that we lost, that we needed, and plug it right back in. And so we don't have to worry about our lost data anymore. Very easy, very quick, very reliable. So moving on, we're going to close this window here, close out of our task. Moving on, we can see also the abilities on exporting. I can export it to an ESX server, to a VMware server, a Hyper-V export. And this actually allows us to attach right into that machine, and where it'll show up on that machine, and all we have to do is tell it to boot. It's very quick, it's very simple, it's a very, very powerful feature. Moving on, I can look at events. Now this time when I'm looking at the events, it's very particular, specific just to this server. Really powerful, really nice. I again have more tools that are just for this server, and configuration that are just for this server. Very similar to the high level across the core that we saw, but this time it's just for the one server we're looking at. So you can easily see here that the software is very powerful, very configurable, and very customizable for your individual network. It's something that would be advantageous for every environment. If you feel it's something you want to check out, please feel more than happy to go to our website. You can download a free trial of the software if you want to play with it. If you'd like to contact me or someone else here at Borderland and have a one-on-one demo, ask questions, we greatly encourage that. You can, of course, find free trials. You can find case studies, assistance, live chat, all right on our website at borderland.com. That's BORDERLAN.com. I appreciate your time today. I hope you've enjoyed this. We have a lot of happy customers nationwide, and we hopefully can make you a happy customer soon. Thank you.